Hey everyone, this is Baylor. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a logging in to the website. So it's been a long time since I've actually updated this video screencast thingamajig. But what we're going to do is we're going to add logging in, like I just said. I'm going to go out and point out something that I just did yesterday. I made a 40-minute screencast on logging in, and the whole video turned out me trying to fix the way you do validations. The primary thing that I did differently is that if I just open the project up on GitHub, and if I open it up, you can see somewhere, if I can find the code, on do sign up.php. When I did the errors, we went through, tried to sign up a new user, we tried to save it. If it didn't save, where we get the else statement, what it did is it just printed out a bunch of errors using this user errors variable. That doesn't do us a lot of good, and I kind of left you guys hang in there, just with the whole way that you didn't really, I'm not sure if y'all really knew how to easily go ahead and get those errors and put them out on a page more properly. So the whole video that I did yesterday ended up me just trying to fix that one thing right there and make it look better. So I'm not going to go back over and do it again. I'm just going to kind of show you what I did real quick, and you can look through the code and stuff. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and log people in and stuff. So the big difference is that on signup.php, we get this new code block that goes just above the form. We make sure that the user errors is available to us. This variable is not empty. And what we do is, because this page loads as soon as I click on this link right here. So if there aren't any errors, there's no reason to try to parse that. This doesn't, this gets run every time you even load the page or you try to submit the form blank. So then what we do is we make sure that we have a user validator class. You remember we did this kind of thing back in a previous episode in our user.php because we were doing with these validate errors. So we make sure we have that class and that we can call a method on this class called getErrors. And if we can, what we do is we get out this class, we get out our variable here, and we call the getErrors method, and we pass in the user errors. And these errors come in when I submit the form blank. What we do from there is we go back over to our validator class, and we have this new method down here called getErrors, and we pass in those errors, and we make sure just as soon as we start out that we have this method called getErrorMessage. And that comes from right here. I could probably pass in self right here. No, I probably couldn't. Never mind. But we just make sure that we can call this method up here. And what we do is we loop through each of the errors. We get their type, because if I just show you the way this works, if I just submit this form, this is what we get. We get in a big array, so we're actually passing this whole array into this getErrors function or method. And what we do is we loop through each one of these errors, and we get their type, which is going to return is email or presence of, and we get for each of the fields, so that gives us this array. And then what we do with that is we loop through each one of the fields, we get their field and their value. We do that so that we can actually get username, email address, and password out of this array so we don't get stuck with this stuff. And what we do from there is we get the field name. What I did for that is I uppercased the words after I replaced each underscore with a space. If I don't do that, it returns it just like this email address. What this will do is it'll replace the underscores with spaces, so it creates spaces, and we uppercase the words. So it'll make this capital E and this a capital A here. So it'll look like this text down here. And what we do is we just make sure that we get a message. So we say get error message for the type, which is going to be presence of, and the field name, which will be username, email address, and password. And up here, we make sure that we get a message. We make sure that up here we have error messages. Notice that the keys for this array line up with the variable names up here. And valid login is a custom one that I added in the actual user class, so that when we try to do authenticate, If this fails, or right here, if all of this fails, then what it does is it adds an error for invalid login, and we pass it to the username field. And that would actually come over here in the login page. But what we do is come back over here to sign up and look back at our functions file. What we do is we get that type, so it's going to be presence of up here. If I just submit this, it's presence of, and it's going to go ahead and pull up that message, which is going to be equal to this type, and we just replace where we have this %s with the field name. So you can say if I go ahead and uncomment this, so we'll delete that line and we'll come up here. If I go ahead and resubmit this, you can see we get the username is required, the email address. Notice it's the email address. Password is required. An email address needs to be a valid email address. That comes through right here. This %s is a string. You can look it up more in detail at php.net/spreadf. So php.net/. Okay, so let's go ahead and set it up so that we can log in. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm not going to work with remember me functions yet because I'm not very good at cookies with PHP or any language because I can't remember the syntax for them very well. They're not something I use very often. I generally use sessions. So what we'll do is later on we'll add a remember me function, and that won't be very hard. I'll just have to find something to make it really easy to work with cookies. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and look at our login.php. Notice that this runs, it tries to go to do login.php. So I'm just going to try to duplicate this file, create a new file, do login.php, grab this file. Okay, we're not going to run it like this. Instead, what we're going to say is user authenticate. And here we're going to get the username and the password. Well, and else up here, what we're going to do is require login. Okay, so, and if we log in successfully, we're going to go to index.php, which can just be /. Okay, so what we're going to do with this authenticate is I actually have on Forest myself this short style for arrays, and what it does is it's just a big loop. If I can, I know that, get out of my way, move. Basically it's just a loop that sits there, and if we kind of come down here, basically look at this. I'm not very good. I have a new mouse that came with my little tablet thing, and it's really annoying. Basically what we have here is this array, and we can get you can see inside of here we have the key for user, and that's an array, and we have info, and that's an array, and we have photos, and that's an array, and then we have large, medium, and small. Just basically it's a large nested array. So what this search parameters function does is you pass in your array, and you can use the syntax like user, info, photos, large. So that's going to do is say user, info, photos, large. So it allows you to, the syntax to get photos normally, this large right here, would be, it would be user, info, photos, large. So you can see that it kind of makes it a lot shorter syntax as a dot syntax, so it's kind of, you get rid of these 4 characters separating each thing. But what it does more importantly is that you can't just come in here and say photos or large photo equals. What you'll have to do in normal PHP is make sure with an if statement that this is not empty. Like that. So you can see that this is 2 lines of code and it's really long. What you can do with search parameters is you could say if large photo, and I'm just going to do SP right here and pass in the user info, just kind of short style. User info photos large, like that. You can see that's a lot shorter. It's a lot easier, and it's going to do the same thing that we just did above, because it's going to make sure that by default it's going to return null. And if you go by, this is the outdated code, because down here in the comments, this guy Thomas Rembaud, I'm not sure I pronounce his name. No offense, because I'm not very good at pronouncing anybody's name. Basically, we went in together, more him than me, and we were able to redo the function to make it better, because it just makes sure that it works. Okay, so we're going to put that in functions.php, because it does both of those things, and we're going to add these two functions I have down here, and I can close this out now, and we're going to throw these in right here. Okay, so back to where we were before with this user authenticate. What I'm going to do is say post username, and we don't have to worry about these actually existing, because it'll automatically handle that for us. And we're also going to get the user password. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. So if we log in, tstring line 9. Oh, gotta get rid of this. Reload. And you see the username or password you supplied is incorrect. And that came from our user validator's error right here. Invalid login. The username or password you supplied is incorrect. So it's really easy to just come in here and change that. And that's the big thing about this validator class, is you can make custom validations and you can do everything without having to go modify this core user class. It allows you everything kind of be separated like good objects in object-oriented programming. So let's go ahead and try to log in successfully. Let me make sure I have an account. User, I have an account. Awesome, 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 awesome. Bail array, pass. Pass that in, and you can see that we must have logged in successfully because it redirected us back to the header. So now, what we're going to do real quick is in functions.php, we have this current user variable, that function that I actually already changed. And in fact, I don't think that's even working right now. No, it's not, because I didn't set that session in here. What I'd like to do is set it up so that we can create secure login sessions pretty easily. So I'm going to create, and I'm thinking that I could do it on this same table, or I could create a new table. I think I'll put it in the same table. So what we're going to add here is a login hash. And this is going to be text, because I don't know how long it'll be. I never pay attention to the links that these come out in over here, because we're going to use this same user crypt thing where we have prepare password and encrypt password. So let's go ahead and come into our user class. We don't need these anymore. And what we're going to do down here, at the very bottom, we're going to add a function that'll be static that's called create or generate login hash. And what we're going to do is password needs some type of value here. So let's do it like this. This will be run on do-login.php. I just kind of come in here and wrap this in column, curly brackets. We're just going to say session login key or hash equals user. What does authenticate return? That's my big question. Okay, it's going to return a user. Okay, so here we can just say user equals, and here we can just say user. That means this doesn't have to be static anymore. Okay, user generate login hash, like that. And inside of here, I'm just going to kill the script real quick when we do this. Okay, so we can quickly get back over here. We can debug this password salt, can't we? Yes, we can. So you can see that we can get this password salt. That's going to be used for the login key or hash thing. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to say login hash equals user crypt prepare password for this password salt. Debug the login hash. And you can see that we got an array. I didn't really want the array. You can pick these, any, meeny, miny, moe it, because it doesn't really matter. They're both pretty random in themselves, in the end of themselves. Yeah. Login hash equals login hash or salt, just so I don't have hash. Okay. So that gives us that. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, oh, let me think. How am I updating all my users and stuff? Save. I don't really want to run the save function again. Okay, so here's my new idea. What we're going to do is we're going to say our database equals, I can't remember how all this works. MySQL DB instance. Okay. Okay, and do I have to run anything else on that? No. Okay, but I'll change this to MySQL just to kind of be good. Okay, so here what we're going to do is say MySQL if MySQL update. I gotta look back at my class. I know you're probably about ready to shoot me or something. I don't know if that's the right thing to say on YouTube, but it's been a long time since I worked on this. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do a where real quick. MySQL where the ID is equal to this ID. Update. We're updating the users table, and we're updating it. We're gonna set the login hash equal to our login hash, like that. So if this works, I think update's going to do it all. I don't have to run anything else on there. Then what we're going to do is return login hash. Else, we could do something else. Show some type of error. Okay. So let's go ahead and try this again. Yeah, try it. Okay, so first of all, let's go double check our database. You can see that we got a login hash, so that's working properly, that we're actually generating and saving this new login hash. And you log in, that login hash should be loaded here. If I jump over to functions.php or index.php rather, where I have this current user, do we get? No. Because what we're doing now is, if I can get back to functions.php, okay, so current user, we're no longer using this session user ID. We're using login hash. And if we have our login hash, then we're going to check authentication with our session, or find by login hash. We'll pass that in. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that new function. And you know what I'm going to do probably right now is I'm going to go back to our user. And you can see that I have this find by username. This is kind of an active record approach right here, this find by. You can see that this find by username, the username is lining up right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function, and we're going to do static. I guess you can do it, but we're going to say call static, and we're going to get the function name and the arguments. And what we'll do is right here where I do this find by login hash, this function doesn't exist, but if I debug my function right here, you can see that we get find by login hash. And if I do arguments, you can see that this is where it's being called up here in functions.php, and we're getting this session login hash. So what we can do here is we can oh, I need to look it up because I don't remember. I just gotta make sure this is working. Yeah, find by. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that we have a find by text at the very beginning of this. So we're just gonna say if preg match, and here we're checking at the very beginning with this caret. For find by underscore, and then we're looking for any text whatsoever. So I think that's going to return underscores. I'm not sure. We may have to change that. And we're looking for this in our function name, and if we do, we're going to get our matches. So let's debug our matches here. Reload, and you can see here it did that our matches is getting this login hash. So we called find by login hash, and we returned login hash right here. And when we return this, we're just going to say our field is going to be equal to matches1. So this is going to be our new field, login hash, which, if you look at our database, lines up perfectly with login hash. We're just going to say return self find, which is a method or a function we're going to find by the field and the arguments. So arguments in this case is going to be somewhere this session login hash. Actually, we're just going to get the first method because we're only looking by one field name. So down here by find by username, I'm going to replace this with find. I want to make this a private static. Yeah, so you can't call it outside. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the field and the value. So down here, what we're going to do is replace this with field and this with value. And this should all work successfully here. By unify method full name. Okay, that's good. We're going to just create that function real quick. Okay, so what have we done here now is we've gone ahead and we found by login hash, and you can see this is going to allow us to do a lot of really easy stuff. Primarily find by username. Somewhere I have that. Let's just go ahead and log out, which doesn't exist. So we'll create logout.php. And here I'm going to do, I think you have to call session start. I'm really not sure though. That's maybe. But we're going to call session destroy right there. And if this, after this is done, we're going to go back to our index.php file. Or we can go back to / reload. And you can see now we're no longer being logged in. So let's log in again, make sure this is all working. Log in. You can see it worked, and I know that worked because and what I was really testing here is authenticate, which is what we run on do-login.php. It's finding by username here, and we can do this self, but I kind of like it being user because it's just kind of nice. Okay, so that's a nice little find function. What I'm also thinking we might do is down here, we're going to create kind of public fields somewhere. I might just say else. No, I think it'll be fine if I just do full name. And full name is just going to return this first name separated. Actually, we could do it kind of nice. Join might be just implode. I think join or split is being like depreciated or whatever, but let's just do join. Pass an array for this first name, this last name, and we're going to separate that with a space. So we'll run this back home, and you can see we get our Baylor array. That gave me my full name. So you can see it's pulled out first name and last name. So that's kind of nice. And you can see that our menus are changing somewhere in our template. Right here, nav, blah, blah, blah. That's my luck. Nav, if there's current user, then our links change based on if we have a user logged in or not. One thing that I might do now is, let's kind of close all this out because there's a lot of stuff open. In functions.php, I have this current user, and it's going to keep finding and running this query over and over and over again. So what I'm thinking I might do is just create a static variable. Now I think this is kind of like a no-no, which I shouldn't have told you that because you may not have known that. But it attaches this to the whole script. Static variable and function. I want it outside of a function. I don't want it inside of a class. Variable scope. Static. Using static variables. Static. I don't know what it's going to do exactly. I just know that it attaches it more. I'm not finding what I want. Okay, anyways, what it's going to do is it's going to attach it, I'll just show what it does. We're going to get user equals null. We're going to say if it's not empty and our user equals null, then we're going to set user equal to this, and we're going to return our user. Okay, so what this will do is it's going to create a static variable. The static variable, like, you may know this already, but if I just create a function, tester, I create a variable equal to Bob or whatever, and I echo out var. We're going to call tester here, Bob. Now, if I came in here, it's not a very good test, is it? I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's just rewrite this whole function up here. Var equals Bob. We're going to say if not empty our session login hash, then our variable equals session login hash. So you can see that we get our variable has changed up here. The thing is, though, actually, let's do it like this, okay? We're going to have our variable, our account equal to 0, and we're going to echo out our count. And every time we call this function, we're going to say count plus plus, which we could do down here. So you can see we get 1. If I duplicate this function a couple of times, you can see we get 1, 1, 1. If I make this function, this variable static, though, you can see it's going up 1, 2, 3. That's because I don't know how to explain it very well, but basically, without the static keyword, this variable gets created every time this function runs. If it's static, though, it does something else, which I don't know how to explain it because I don't know it very well, but basically what it's going to do is it's going to set it up so that this variable doesn't get created every single time you run the function. It just kind of floats there and gets pulled down into the function. So you can see that we're able to just create this count. So what it'll do up here inside of current user is that by default, our user equals null. And if we do have the login hash session and our current user equals null, then we overwrite this user variable and set it to find by login hash. So what this will do is if I call current user here, this will be the very first time it runs. Therefore, what it's going to do, and I don't know if that's a good therefore sign, but I did it anyways. Therefore, what it's going to do is query the database. If I run it here, second time, return cache user object. Like that. Okay, so that's what it's going to do. The very first time this function runs, because it's null, it's going to go ahead and find a new user. Otherwise, it's not. So what it kind of allows you to do is querying the database is kind of extensive, you know, trying to go and pull records from the database. So this kind of helps it where it doesn't have to keep doing that over and over again. And I'm not really sure the best way to do it because this isn't a class. This is just a function. The only way the only other way I know how to do it is something like do not call user object equals null, and then down here something like global that variable do not call user object, and then down here we would actually set it and all this stuff. This is pretty easy and it's probably fine in this case. So basically this is going to create us our current user, and it makes it really easy for us so that we can do stuff like this. I can come in, let's go to index.php. Instead of, you notice I called this method on top of it. Well, alternatively, what I could have done is said PHP echo the current user, and here I could say username. And you can see that returned our username here. We could do the password hash, which you wouldn't want to put that out on the page, or the password salt for that matter. You wouldn't want to do these two, but you can do stuff like their first name and their last name and their email, its address like that, email address, and stuff like that. So it'll make it really easy so that you can quickly pull content out on the page using this current user function. And it's going to be really useful and helpful later on, because in like the next video, we're going to start working with ACL, which will allow us to do stuff like this. We're going to have, for instance, a link. And this goes to admin area, private, or something like that, you know. And then you have this link to the admin area. But the thing is, you don't want that visible to everyone, you know. So what you could do with this is essentially say if the current user can access admin area, then we could do it like this right here. And you can see these don't exist, so we're getting errors. That's one method or kind of idea that I've come up with, is this can method, which I'm really thinking might be better. The other way that I have kind of decided to maybe do this is to say the current user can access admin area, like that. Both syntaxes are almost the same length because, I mean, you're not adding that much more to it. But I don't know which way I want to do this, because basically the way it'll work is we're going to have user ACL down here, and we're going to say dependencies, and I bet I misspelled that. Maybe I didn't. Nope, I didn't. I'm always worried about that word and a couple of others, especially with this, my font. I mean, like, some words like place, it doesn't look misspelled there, of course. But on occasion, I'll have words and I'm like, did I spell that right? Anyways, the way this will work is we're just going to make sure that we have our user.php class, because what we're going to do is we're going to say class user ACL extends the user object. and we might do this the other way around, but I'm thinking we might set it up where you have this user ACL, and this will have a function called call, like that. We get the function, the arguments, and what we'll do down here, and we're just going to require each other just to make sure that we get them both sides. Okay, and down here what we're going to have is a function called call, and this is going to return user ACL instance or something like that. And this instance, actually I have a better way of doing this. Okay, so basically what this will do, this might not work very well, but oh, I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. Maybe we don't need to extend the user. Okay, and if I method user can, why? Can, okay, and if we call, okay, you know what, this is just getting way too much into what I don't want to get into. So I'm going to come up with a better way to do this, and a way to do this, and in the next video, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be getting into. So thank you for watching, if you watched it this far, this 40-minute video, and goodbye.